Good evening, folks. I always feel a little bit of trepidation when I get up here because, unlike a lot of people, I don't learn my speeches off by heart. I never have been able to. At school, when we were doing the school plays, I used to mess up big time because I just couldn't learn the lines, or I'd learn them and then something would go past and I'm gone, and then got to go back to the start. So at this point of the evening, here we are, we're both about to discover what I'm going to say. So it could be a good fun evening. I hope it is, and we'll find out shortly. Now, it's not long since Christmas, and what happens just after Christmas? New Year. And what happens at New Year? New Year's resolutions. Now, I saw on Facebook the other day, I spend a lot of time on Facebook. It's minutes a day sometimes. But this thing jumped out at me. It was headed up my New Year's resolution. And the first one is a stick figure doing calisthenics. And the date is January 1. And then the second part of the image was dated January 14. And you see it standing there and it's all hung over and the sweat's pouring off it. And the third part of the image is January 31. It's laid out beside the pool with a beer. And that's the way a lot of New Year's resolutions go. But that's not us. And I hope after tonight you look at them in a whole new different light, because a New Year's resolution it's a goal. And there's reasons that we set goals that are probably not apparent to you. And I'll go through a couple of them tonight, and I might give you a whole new appreciation of the humble New Year's resolution. So it's about time we got into it. Cut that out. Okay, somewhere here there's oh, look at that. Got everything. Okay, the apparent importance of goal setting. Why would you set goals? The humble bumblebee. What does a bee do? A bee is being a bee, and what do?
Make honey.
They make honey? Well, they collect pollen, and then they make the honey out of the pollen, yes. And what else? Yes, they do that. And what else? They pollinate the world's flowers. They feed the world unintentionally and unconsciously. Now, the bee is just going about being a bee, but they are feeding the world while they're doing it. They've got a bigger role on this planet than they know. And if you've never been called a bee before, you don't get out enough. How important are bees? If the bee disappeared off the surface of the globe, then man would only have 4 or 5 years of life left. No more bees, no more pollination, no more plants, no more animals, no more man. Albert Einstein, early in the 20th century. Now, things have moved along a bit since then. We're still massively dependent on the bees for pollination. Martin mentioned that I started out on the farm. And sometimes, depending on the season, depending on the crop, you'd go looking for a guy with a lot of beehives. When you planted your crop at the right time, you get around there to make sure that your crop pollinated. Makes a huge difference. A lot of plants do cross-pollinate, but bees are massively responsible for it. The estimation now is about half or a third of the plants and the plant life on Earth is pollinated by bees. Now, if we take the bees out, that's a huge gap to fill. So what is procession? Our actions affect everything around us. Absolutely everything we do affects everyone else in some way. You've probably heard the story about the butterfly that flapped and caused a storm across the Atlantic. Yeah, okay. The bee is going about its job collecting pollen. And if you liken us to the bees, we're going about our job. We're doing whatever we do as our job, our business, our career, our income support. But while the bee is doing what it's doing, it's pollinating the flowers of the planet, making life on Earth sustainable. The bee just does what the bee does. But we are different. We can aim higher than the bee. We don't have to stop at just pollinating that particular flower that we've been programmed into. We can aim a whole lot higher. You ever seen a picture of a shock wave as a plane goes through the sound barrier? That is precession. The definition by Buckminster Fuller in the mid-1950s or somewhere around then when he first coined this phrase, it affects everything at 90 degrees to the angle of the object in motion. So if you drop a rock in a pond, the ripples go out at 90 degrees. So we affect everything as we move through life, doing whatever we're doing. So we do something and something else is affected. So we'll build on this picture a bit more. Let's just say you had a goal. You wanted to fly the A380 to London. Who wouldn't like to do that? That'd be great. But what has got to be done for you to do that? You can't just go and hop on the A380. It's going to cost you about 10 grand to start with. You'll need that saved up. But look at what's had to happen for your goal to be achieved. $400 million for the aircraft. Now, it's a start. There's 30 wages. There's 300 ground crew in Brisbane. Now, Brisbane has got a very different HR structure to Heathrow. Because at Heathrow, they've got 76,000 employees. In Brisbane, there's a lot of individual companies. In Heathrow, they have all the one company. Fuel, 375 tonnes. That's a lot of fuel. What about putting down a number of 4-kilometre runways? The airport infrastructure. And what about having a backup plane just in case that one was going to be late? And all because you had a $10,000 goal. So your goal is really important because there's been billions of dollars of infrastructure required for you to be able to keep it. It's a different light, isn't it? Human beings are experience-seeking creatures. We always have been. We have more sensory perception than any other creature. Okay, our noses are not quite as good as the dogs. So they can smell better, they can see better. But we have more nerve endings than pretty much anything else. I grew up on the farm. And we'd be shearing or crutching the sheep. And you'd be leaning over with a bog iron and you might cut the sheep. If it was a human skin, they would be screaming agony. The sheep don't actually feel it that much because they've got a whole lot less nerve endings per square inch or centimetre or whatever you want to measure it with. They feel it differently. We are incredibly sensory perceptive because our brains are the most advanced organisms on the planet. So when you look at the sensory perception, the experience seeking, here's a picture that was taken a very long time ago. It's about an experience these two guys are going to have, maybe. The survival of the species depends on us seeking experiences. So that's the first one. Here's the next one. The next time man got airborne. They wanted the experience. I'm reading a series of books at the moment. Has anyone read The Clan of the Cave Bear? Good. A lot of people. Incredible. But it's actually about the origins of Homo sapien, the human species. in the days of the crossover and the interlinking between Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon and so on. It's that time, but it weaves a story around man's discovery of things like how to make fire and medicinal properties and so on. And the spear thrower and throwing spears and having sharp spears and having points on spears. It's really interesting because these things are the experiences that some ancient man said, I'd like to try that. And this is why we're here today, because someone said, I think we can do better. It might have been 30, 40, 50,000 years ago, but someone said, I think we can do better. I think if we set a goal, we can make this work better. And that's got us here today. What's next? It's not a very good colour there, but that's the virgin evolution. He's going to take that into space one of these days. So from the early days, with Fred and Barney up the top there, to going into space in this absolutely incredible machine, we've come a long way with our experience seeking. Why set goals? Our goals, dreams and desires create and power the global economy. Nothing else does. The only reason we have a global economy is because people set goals. Let's think about that. The global economy exists solely because people set goals. Now, you've talked to an economist and they'll say the economy is this or the economy is that. No. Sorry. That might be the facts. But the actual situation is that people have wants and needs and desires and they set goals to achieve them. And companies are set up to satisfy those wants and needs. That's why we have a global economy. Our goals, dreams and desires, innate experience-seeking nature sets us apart from every creature on earth. There's very few other animals, perhaps with the exception of the dolphin and the dog, that want to do more than just be what they are. Dolphins and dogs play, kittens play. But it's only the human that wants to do more than that. They want to create more. There's been some fairly crude examples of animals using tools. A chimpanzee using a stick to poke a bug out of a log. Okay, maybe we were there 50,000 years ago. I don't know, I was very young then. But really, this is what sets us apart. At some point, someone said, I want more. And they set goals. And that's why we're here. It is our responsibility to keep doing it, because if we don't, what happens? It's like pulling all the bees out of the planet. If we stop setting goals, if we stopped having wants and needs and desires, the global economy grinds to a halt. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? Now, you hear about people saying, I don't like that company anymore, let's boycott them. Well, that's all very well, but you'll just take your needs and wants and desires to some other company. But what if we stopped? The economy grinds to a halt. Different way of looking at it. What am I doing here? One of my mentors, Jim Rohn, the major reason for setting a goal is for what it makes of you to accomplish it. What it makes of you will always be the far greater value than what you get. And down below is probably where his inspiration comes from. What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become. What does that mean? Let's just say you had a goal to make $1 million. So, you work like crazy for a long time, have a lot of setbacks, have a lot of successes, and one day you look in the bank and there's $1 million. And then the GFC comes along. Where's my $1 million? Sorry, we're fresh out of $1 million notes today. You'll have to go back to the start. Down the ladder and start again. But what have you got? Have you talked to anyone who's made their second million about how long it took? Or their third? Or their 10th? It doesn't take very long the next time round. When we built our shearing shed, it took ages. We had to teach ourselves to do it. I was about 10 at the time, 10 or 12 or something, I don't know. I was young and fit and got lots of logs and posts dropped on me, and I blackened a few fingernails and so on. We learnt the hard way. It took a long time. Actually, the next few sheds I built didn't take long though. Put them up in a weekend. So the first one is hard. The first $1 million is hard. But from then on, you've worked out how to do it. You've worked out what the strategy is. So what you become is more important than what you get, because what you get can be taken away. Who's ever lost a lot of money? Okay, who hasn't? So, do you know how to get it back? That's the important thing. What did you learn on the way up? Because it's all very transient. I've learned a few things over the years about making money and losing money. I've become pretty good at both. And I learnt a lot. And now when I walk into a company, I can look at it and say, I can see what the trouble is. But we haven't said anything yet. You don't have to. I've been there. I see what you're doing, and I know it doesn't work. I got the scars to prove it. So, what you become is more important than what you get, because what you get can go. It is really important to make that distinction. The next thing to consider is that your goal is not the goal. There's a few levels of this. You set a goal and you think, okay, I want to lose some weight. But you don't really want to lose some weight, do you? There's a lot more to it than just losing a few kilos, or whatever the goal is. When you set your goal, ask, so what? And when you get the answer to it, ask, so what again? I want to lose some kilos. So what? Well, when I lose some kilos, I'll feel better about myself. Okay? So what? When I feel better about myself, other people might feel better about me and they might like me. Now we're getting down to it. It wasn't about losing the kilos. What was it about? It's about a feeling of satisfaction with myself, about confidence, or about who knows what it is. But it's usually the third time you ask that the values come out. And this is where you get really close to what's important. It's what's underneath the goals. Because what your goals tell you about yourself and what your goals tell other people about you is pretty close to your value system. You look at the goals someone set, you look at what they aim at. Look, there was a guy down the Gold Coast years ago when I lived there. Who remembers the Magnum TV show? The Ferrari, the red Ferrari. There was a guy down the Gold Coast, used to have one of them. And he sat in front of the cafe in Main Beach every day in his Ferrari. Now, he achieved his goal, but what did it actually say about him? He was sitting there with the gold chain round his neck and the lid off the car. It's like a Venus flytrap. You could see his values written all over him. So, what do your goals tell you and tell us about your values? Now, let's move on a little bit, because what we really want to know, we want to get down to the meat of it. How do you make this goal setting thing work? How do you actually get this thing to work? Because who's never heard of a goal setting theory? I mean, everyone's heard of one, but have you all got what you wanted? There's some really simple lessons. They're fundamental. They're generalised principles. And if you wanted to take notes, here's 5 notes for you. The first thing is know what you want. Clarity leads to empowerment. If you are clear on what you want, then it will happen. And it's crazy how that happens, but I'll tell you a few stories later on about these sort of things. It is amazing how having clarity makes a difference. It also allows you discernment, because there comes a time when, I once set a goal to have a $50,000 sales management job. And I achieved it. The guy said, I'll give you $50,000 to be my sales manager, and I was able to say, thank you, but I've moved way on from there now. You don't have to take it when it's offered. But if you're clear, you can say, no, that's not the goal for me anymore. Or I can do better. I deserve better. I want better. So, know what you want. The absolute first step. Because if you don't know what you want, you won't know whether or not you've got it or where the hell you are. It's like having a map. A map is absolutely useless unless you've got your starting point. It's just a piece of paper. So, know what you want. Know who to ask, those who can actually assist you. Now, I was in financial planning for a while. And actually, I was in financial services for about 20 years altogether. And I was always getting this story about, someone told me that I should do this, or someone told me I should do that. I've even had the taxi driver one. The taxi driver. The second last fare he had was someone from a share office, a share broking office, and he said we should invest in this. Okay, well that's a fairly tenuous link to an advice, but if you want to, you can. But if you really want to get a result, why not ask someone who actually knows what they're talking about? I mean, there's a novel idea. Ask someone who's got a bit of an idea what's going on. If you wanted some advice on something and you were in this room, you could probably ask half a dozen different people and you'd end up being pointed in the same direction. Because there's probably 2 or 3 people in the room who could answer that question for you exactly, precisely, specifically what you needed to know. The information's around. You've just got to ask around to find out where it's located. Because it's here. The information is everywhere. You can Google information. Get a bit of a pointer to it. Educate yourself first, because the better your questions, the better the quality of the answer you can find. So ask someone who can actually assist you. Do your homework and find out who is the best person to ask for some advice. Be in exchange. Pay a fair price. You can go price shopping, and that's fine. It's wise to be, careful with your budget. There are people who will take all your money and not give you anything in return for it. But there's also the price of poor advice that you get from getting the budget program. There's an old saying, something along the lines of the poor quality is remembered long after the low price is forgotten. So be in exchange. How do you know when you're out of exchange? If you're negotiating something with someone and you come to an agreement, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be in exchange. How do you know that you're out of exchange? Someone feels cheated. It's really that simple. They think, I should be getting more than what I've got. I'm putting all this in and I'm only getting that back. I feel cheated. They feel out of exchange. If someone feels out of exchange, what's their output to you going to be? It won't be the quality or the calibre that you'd like. But if people are in exchange, if they feel this is a great deal, how enthusiastic are they? They do the right thing by you. So be in exchange. Now, what is exchange? We often think of exchange as money, because you pay money for goods and services and so on. But it may not be. What if you wanted some wisdom from a sage mentor? And the guy over the road who's been retired for 10 years was the one that had it. He might not want some money, he might want his lawn mowed. Does he feel cheated? No. Because his biggest challenge is not the money, it's getting the lawn mowed. So be in exchange, whatever that is. There's a lot of research groups. They get the focus group together, and how do they pay them? Pizza and Coke. That's it. This is what determines the buying decisions of the population. Pizza and a big bottle of Coke. You wonder why they're all skewed up. But this is what happens. People feel they're in exchange, so they go for it. That's all they want. So find out what a fair exchange is, whatever it is, and pay it. Because when you do, you'll get your value. Ask as if. If you've got confidence, if you walk into a room with courage and confidence and you ask, you'll get a whole lot more than if you stand there and wait and hope that someone notices you. Have the courage of your convictions. Stand up tall and say, can you help me? I'd like that. And sometimes it's hard work. If you're looking at some of these goals are personal development goals. You might be working on something which has been gnawing away at you for years, gnawing away at your self-confidence, and it can be really hard to have the courage to ask for something. What did he say? It's not what you get, but what you become. So what does it take to muster up the courage to ask for whatever that was? And what's actually happening when you're doing it? You're becoming something more than you were. Interesting. So, courage. And whoever got it the first time round? It usually doesn't happen that way. One of the games that we play in the soft skills workshop is about asking. And because we're not playing it, I'll give the secret away. Group A and Group B. Group A goes out of the room, and Group B has got their $5 or $20 or $100 note. And the only way they can get it back is ask for it six times. They've got to ask, can I have my money back 6 times? So Group A comes back in and they say, can I have my money back? And they say no. Oh. And they stop. What do your 3-year-olds do? They would have that money so quick, they'd be down to the pub with it or the cafe buying an ice cream or whatever. So quick. I want my money. Give me my money. Give me my money. And away they go. You can't stop them. Turn around, they got a key in the middle of the back unwinding. They go for it. But these adults who have learned all of the skills, they've got all the wisdom of the ages, can I have my money back? No. Oh. And that's it? You got to be kidding me. So anyway, we eventually coax, cajole, get them all through that. Group B goes out of the room and Group A's got their $100. Group A comes back in and think this will be easy. Can I have my $100? Can I have my $100? Can I have my $100? No. Because they've got to ask 5 different ways. Begging, grovelling, screaming, threatening. It's all okay as long as it's 5 different ways. Now, your 3-year-old would have done both on the way through. But these people who have got all of these years of business experience behind them, it might take them half an hour to get their $100 back. Wow, what a lesson. Interesting stuff. So persistence is absolutely critical because it's not always going to happen the first time. You might almost get there and it's snatched away from you. So ask until. Whatever it takes. If it's important, why would you stop? Ask until. I get in a lot of trouble over this one, but it's really important. The definition of compromise, and this is out of the Webster's Pocket Dictionary, where each party gives up part of their goal in order to achieve a settlement. Has everyone compromised here at some time? Politicians make a career out of it. But when you think about it, you set a goal. I want to make $1 million. We'll use dollars because it's easy to keep track of them. And they say, yeah, you can have $1 million. No, you can't. You can only have 750,000. Why would you give up part of your goal willingly like that? Who sets these rules? Why would you compromise? Now, this came home to me really powerfully. Many years ago, I was doing a JET program, Jobs Employment Training for sole parents on the Gold Coast. It was sole parents, but it turned out to be all women, and there was 3 age groups. There was 18 to 23-year-olds, there was 27 to 30s, and then there was 3 or 4 women who were over 40. And when I put this up, I said, what do you think? And the young one said, oh, no, you've got to compromise. You've got to get along with people. And that's a fair comment. So you've got to get along with people. And then the next group, they weren't sure because they tried that and it wasn't really working, but they didn't know what else there was. So I asked the older ladies what they thought, and one of them put it beautifully. She said, I have compromised my life away. I have nothing left to give. Wow. Nailed it. So, when you're really clear on your goal, why would you compromise? Why not find another way to get there? Why take someone else's word for it that, no, you can't have that? It's treason to your spirit. Because how do you feel when you've got to give up part of your goal? A bit about exchange? You feel cheated? Yeah. Why would you do that to yourself? How could you? Now, we all know about setting goals, don't we? Well, setting goals is the easy part. It's really simple, very straightforward. What do you want? The answer is a goal. It really is that simple. Ask detailed questions about the goal to get clarity. For example, how many bedrooms, what colour, size, how many doors. The clearer you are, the better you will get a result. The better your question, the better your answer, the greater your goal setting clarity. It's really that simple. Goal setting is quite easy. Write it down. Put a picture up where you see it daily. Now, I'll tell you a little story about this. In 1990, I first met Jim Rohn. Incredible man. Sitting in the room with him, and it was a much smaller room than this. There was about 20 of us there. And he said, goals, he said, draw a picture of your goal. Write your goal. And he kept on saying it. Anyway, I was just doodling away and I drew the front end, the grille and the headlights of a little 3 Series BMW. If you remember the little 3 Series BMW from then, it was the one they used to race against the Holdens and the Fords. And they used to go like the clappers, and if it wasn't a really wide open straight, if there was any corners in it, they would win. The cheek of them. Anyway, not long after this, I'd been working with a guy down the Gold Coast, and he absolutely screwed me backwards. And I left my vehicle with him. I had a four-wheel drive, and he gave me his car so that I could go and do the business. I was doing the corporate rescue work. And then he came in one day and he said, "You got the keys there?" And yeah, sure. Threw him the keys. And he said, "I'm taking the car back." He said, "I'm going out of business." He said, "Mother's found that I've been ripping off her trust account and we're no longer in business." "Oh, well, where's my four-wheel drive?" "Oh," he said, "I sold that. Get a taxi home." Right. Okay. So this is 9 o'clock at night and I'm on level 19 of the corporate centre in the Gold Coast, and my world has just changed. So this was only about 8 weeks after this episode with Jim Rohn. And I spoke to another guy that I knew, and he said, "Oh, you should talk to Stephen." So Stephen was an architect and he was just closing his business down because he'd got to a certain stage, and he said, "Okay, just about done this." Walked into Stephen's garage, he had 9 cars. And he said, "What do you want?" "I'll have the BMW, thank you." It was that quick. A little 3 Series BMW with 60,000 Ks on it. Very nice. When your answer is an experience, for example, "I want to feel exhilarated," ask a clarifying question. How can I get that? And then how else? Because there might be a few different ways for you to choose from. The answers contain your target goals. So parachuting, driving a Ferrari, holding hands at dusk, getting carried away at the opera, whatever the goal is. Now, this is how to set goals. That's the easy part. How to get goals? It's different. Ask yourself, what do I need to be, do or have to achieve this goal? And how much have I got already? Okay, so now we're establishing our starting point. What do I still need to get, learn or to know? How can I get it? Who from? Pretty fundamental stuff. We're establishing where you are and what you've got and what you need. What are my stepping stones? Because we can't just go and get it all at once. It's going to take a little while to get there. We've got to walk across the room to get it, or wherever we've got to go. We've got to take a few steps. What's my time frame and start time? So here's the starting point. What's my first step in my ongoing plan? It's really logical, isn't it? When you break it down like this, it is really logical and straightforward. How will I celebrate my success? Because when you set a goal, it's all very well to set a goal. You might aim for the diploma or aim for the ceremony or so on of being awarded the degree for getting through university, but isn't it better if you look forward to having the shingle up on the wall somewhere? Because you can't put the shingle up on the wall without actually achieving the goal. Aim for the shingle on the wall rather than the diploma ceremony. Makes it a whole lot more sure you'll get it. We've all heard people say, "But I don't set goals." I'll give you another way of looking at it. Every goal you set, consciously or not, no matter how big, it's a stepping stone to something else in your life. And there's another element to it. Your goals and dreams are someone else's business. You might keep your goals and dreams private. Crazy if you do. Because someone else has set up a business to help you achieve your goals. Your business is facilitating someone else's dreams and goals. Everyone here who's got a business or is in service is facilitating the goals and dreams of someone else. This is the global economy we talked about. Your goals and dreams, someone else has set up a business to help you get them. And your business is set up to help them get theirs. That's how this works. It's a really important distinction to make. Every goal changes you on the way to you achieving it. This is the true value of the goal. Precession, the shockwave. On the way to getting that goal, other stuff happens. Now, the most dangerous creature on the planet. Isn't it a horrible looking thing? Luckily, it's not as big as the picture. It's the varroa mite. Does anyone know what the varroa mite is? It's not very well known. It attacks bees in the hive. Can cause complete colony losses. It is absolutely destructive to bees. They have no way of dealing with it. Drones carry the tiny mite from colony to colony. It fits in the scales and the crinkles in the bee's skin. That's how tiny it is. Australia is the only continent in the world without the varroa mite, and we actually supply bees to the rest of the world to keep their populations up. In 2008, there was one guy with a $200,000 budget in Australia was our only defence against the varroa mite. Now, what did we say about how important the bees were? Okay. I petitioned long and hard to the federal government to get something done, and they upped it to $1 million. But, so what? It's nothing. It's a bit more now, but it needs to be. But ask yourself, are you someone else's varroa mite to their dreams, or are you the protector? Because as someone goes about being a bee, pollinating the flowers that feed the world, this is lurking in the background. Now, where are you on the map? Are you the protector, or are you the little mite? Where to now? We're just about to wrap this up. This battery has died, but I think we're about on time. 5-year goal plan. If you don't have one, talk to the person that invited you. Goals are really important, folks. I've tried to show you tonight how important a goal is. Goals power the world. They make the world turn. So if you don't have a 5-year goal plan, whoever invited you along tonight will be able to tell you how to go about setting one up. And it's really important that you do. If you want a mentor, the same thing. The people in this room who could mentor you are as good as they come. Absolutely. Now, the keys to success in goal setting and achievement. Keep turning up. There is no substitute for turning up. You've got to be there. You've got to be a player. You've got to keep turning up, because it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen the first time. In fact, over the years I've had a number of people say, no, we're not going to do this until we know you come back about 6 times. We want to know that you're consistent. And consistency will get the reward. So you keep turning up. One step at a time. It's the journey, not the goal, that matters. And allow yourself to be changed by your goals. It's really important that you go with this. Just let yourself soak it all up and become what it is that your goal is meant to do for you.